What is up, my friends? Welcome to this special profile edition of Global Economic Report. Today, we are going to give a deep dive into Ripple XRP, and as the title alluded to, the Great Ripple Conspiracy. Now, this is not going to get into conspiracy theories or fringe ideas. We are just going to go through the timeline. I think for the very first time in one video, go through the entire timeline from start, and we're going to miss a lot, trust me, because everything that I've discovered, there's still so much more. So we're going to go from start through the beginning years, the ties and connections to PayPal, Silicon Valley, the Bilderberg Group, the Rothschilds, and now the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and all the connections. And we're just going to lay it all out. And the reason why I wanted to make this video is because I, for one, haven't found a video that just went through the whole thing. At the end, I will share some of my opinions and what I think is going to happen. If you've been checking out the channel for a while, you already kind of know my overall stance. I think that there is a global currency that they're getting ready to roll out, and I think it will be Ripple. Love it or hate it, I think that's how it's going to go down, but I will share more of my personal opinion at the end of this video. We are going to get off on some little conspiracy stuff a little bit. Everyone, who doesn't love a good conspiracy theory? But for the most part, we're going to stick to the timeline, and I'm really excited to share all this with you. This has taken quite a bit of time and processing to put the whole thing together, and I hope it comes across as great as it does in my head, but we'll see, and you guys be the judge. If you like this, the simplest way you can show support is just by clicking the like button, but also too, you can support us in other ways if you like. That's all going to be in the description box, as well as all these links will be in the description box as well, so that you can check what I'm showing you and research it for yourself and formulate your own opinions, which I think is more important than you listening to mine. So let's dive right in. We're starting all the way at what I call the beginning, and that is in 1988, January 9th, 1988, The Economist, which is a Rothschild-owned magazine brand company, publishing house, this cover was pushed out. Okay, this was actually produced, this was actually printed, and it says on the cover, "Get ready for a world currency. Phoenix standing on burning money." So it's essentially standing on a pile of burning fiat, and yes, that is a phoenix, not a bald eagle. I don't know how people confuse it, but this is the mythological creature rising from the ashes, the phoenix that's talked about in I guess you could say scripture, other mythological stories. But on the pendant itself, we're going to talk about that briefly and some of the weird oddities of that. But before we do, 1988, what's fascinating about that year is David Schwartz, CTO of Ripple, he put in his first patent in 1988 for computer technology stuff, which was the fast track and was the start really of this digital currency boom. Okay, and I'll talk about that more. So 1988, coincidentally, was a great year for this whole digital currency concept, because we got, finally, they're talking about it, which this sounded like crazy talk to people back then. Same year, David Schwartz puts in his first patent. He ends up getting that in 1991, which I'll show you that in just a second. But let's now focus on this pendant area. Can I zoom in? Yes, I can. So it's a little blurry, but it says 10 Phoenix 2018, this symbol here, which it's up for debate what this symbol actually is, and it says 10. What's fascinating about 10 October 2018 is that is when RippleNet launched. That was the Swell conference as well. Bill Clinton spoke at that. Ben Bernanke spoke at past Swell conferences as well. So I find that interesting. But the Rothschild connection is the following, and this is a little bit theorish, okay? XRP backwards is PRX, which would could be the ticker for the Phoenix coin. So XRP equals Phoenix. 10 letters in the name Rothschild, obviously. Then the 10 is binary code for digital currency. Also, too, the correlation with XRapid. Excuse me, I said RippleNet, it's XRapid. So the XRapid was live, I believe, in October of 2018 is when they launched at the Swell conference. So interesting stuff, right? Now let's dive into it. I've talked about this before on the channel. I actually have a copy of this. I just couldn't find it. So I wanted to read you just this quick article. Well, this is from the article, quick excerpt from the article. Okay, 30 years from now, Americans, Japanese, Europeans, and people in many other rich countries and some relatively poor ones will probably be paying for their shopping with the same currency. Prices will be quoted not in dollars, yen, or D-marks, but in, let's say, the Phoenix. The Phoenix will be favored by companies and shops because it will be more convenient than today's national currencies, which by then will seem a quaint cause of much disruption to economic life in the last 20th century. It's just fascinating that somebody could predict this. And obviously there's tons of conspiracy theories around this whole magazine article that they didn't predict this. They already knew because that's where they wanted to take things, blah, blah, blah. But the point is that at face value, somebody is predicting that this fiat currency would become a problem. And so much so that they created this sort of cover, which is a very artistic, unique cover to have the fiat on the ground burning, rising from the ashes, this new digital currency that all the top countries in the world will be using. Okay, that's the start of our journey. Now, what I talked about, let's get into now the patent. Okay, computer systems patent. A multi-level distributed computer system for distributed processing preferably includes a plurality of personal computers. A task inputted to a system is divided into a plurality of portions. Is this not how this all is working today with different software and wallets, and how they are contributing to the overall piece, and how you have to download the blockchain to be able to run the software so that the ledger is intact, right? So distributed for processing on the lowest level of the system. Those portions unprocessed on the lowest level are distributed for processing on the next lowest level. Remaining unprocessed portions of the task are distributed to available computers on successively higher levels of the system until all the tasks have been distributed for processing. So this could obviously and very well be considered the very first blockchain patent, and that can be accredited to David Schwartz. He originally got that in 1991. So there you go for all the history buffs, and for everybody that wants to say Ripple in fact is older than Bitcoin. You have this piece of proof, him being an originator and really a cyberpunk, a cyber cryptographer, cyberpunk, whatever you want to call him. Yes, he does win that award. Next, Digi Cache, which was created by David Traum, who's also too a crypto punk, a cyberpunk, whatever you want to call him. He was one of the very first. Okay, there was a small group that were running in the late 90s and early 2000s that all essentially got shut down after this big conference that happened, because I actually got to talk to somebody who went to that conference who was representing a digital currency at the time, and they essentially said that over the next 3 to 6 months, everybody got nabbed up and shut down by either the three-letter agencies in America, Australia, and across Europe. It was like a clean sweep of everybody, and people got massive amounts of jail time for it, and they essentially shut it all down. And the reason why is because back then digital currency was centralized, which what was born out of that was decentralized cryptocurrencies. So anyways, Digi Cache was one of the originals. It was a form of electronic money. It eventually went bankrupt and was sold off as scrap in 2011, I believe. Let me just double check the dates here. 2002, I'm sorry. So Digi Cache was one of the original, in fact, I think it was the original electronic money. It was well before its time. E-commerce hadn't even been developed yet on the internet, and it ended up going bankrupt in 2002, sold off in scrap. They filed Chapter 11 in 1998. That was it. That was the story with this one. And this was a very similar story with other, I'm surprised they don't have other related digital currencies back then, but you know what? Nobody's really out there telling these stories, and I don't think it was really that well documented back then, which is why, the 10 or 20 others that also kind of failed through this period are never really talked about. So a lot of times we're seeing things way back in time, and then we don't really know about it until later on down the road. And so I guess I'm filling you in on some of what's actually occurred behind the scenes and some of the original stuff that created digital currency, which for my cryptocurrency buffs, I'm sure you can appreciate that. On to one of the most prevalent arguments in the Bitcoin versus Ripple argument, which I don't think they even should be arguing. They both serve different purposes. Ripple was always trying to create a network that could do really fast transactions, and you'll see more about that in some really old articles I dug up in just a few minutes. But Ripple itself, the project, which was called OpenCoin at the time, does win this as well. And so we're 2 for 2 now with Ripple. So Ryan Fugger created it originally in 2004. Up until now, Bitcoin has been by far the most powerful contender in the cryptocurrency market. Other alternatives such as Namecoin, Solidcoin, and Litecoin have arisen to offer various modifications to the core Bitcoin concept, but despite over a year's worth of development and dozens of attempts, none have achieved anything close to Bitcoin's level of success. Interesting, right? Like, when was this actually written? This is old. This is an old piece. Now that may have finally changed with decentralized cryptocurrencies, new kid on the block, Ripple. This is like the first article, kind of the first introduction of Ripple. And yes, they win the award for being older than Bitcoin, coming along first. So now we go back to some of the beginning. Yeah, so Ripple was developed in 2004. In 2012, it was turned into OpenCoin. So I previously misspoke by saying that it was OpenCoin first. No, it started as Ripple. In 2012, it turned into OpenCoin and then switched back. So when it swapped to OpenCoin in 2012, that was Jed McCaleb, who ended up leaving to start Stellar Lumen, Arthur Brito, David Schwartz, and Chris Larson. Chris Larson and Jed, I believe, were the two co-founders. Here's a piece that I found. I couldn't read the whole thing, and I'm not going to buy this, not going to get a trial, don't care to. But you can, and you can read the whole piece if you'd like. Chris Larson, who disrupted consumer finance in the 90s and 2000s with eLoan and Prosper, is seeking to shake up industry again with Ripple, a peer-to-peer payment and lending system. So the original concept was to actually be payments and lending, just like Prosper. I don't know if you guys have heard of Prosper before, but it's a P2P lending platform, okay? Ripple looks to improve on Bitcoin, the decentralized virtual currency and payment system that emerged 3 years ago and is beginning to gain some respectable traction. Yeah, so Jed McCaleb was a tech serial entrepreneur and major figure in the Bitcoin community at that time. At this time, the main arguments was that Bitcoin took 10 minutes and it could take up to an hour for those that were accepting it as payment, and Ripple was looking to transact in just seconds, which has always been the argument. They talk about that more in this article here. Big name investors back effort to build a better Bitcoin. And so this is funny because market sophistication, which I talk about often on this channel, always comes into play. This is a marketing concept that was originally talked about by Eugene Schwartz, which was a direct advertiser, one of the largest in the 60s and 70s, I believe. He talked about market sophistication. So this is a level when the main argument is to build a better XYZ, or XYZ on steroids, or the next XYZ that is a certain level of sophistication, okay? So let's now catch up. It launches in 2012 as OpenCoin. So a year after this article essentially comes out and they swap to OpenCoin, they start to attract some of Silicon Valley's biggest venture funds and venture capitalists, okay? This is including Google, Peter Thiel, the co-founder of PayPal, Andreessen Horowitz, who essentially sold the company Skype to Microsoft for $8.5 billion. His cut was essentially $100 million, or thought to be $100 million. They got him to invest, and then not too long after that, I believe a month later, here's the next piece, we get Google Ventures. Okay, last month, OpenCoin wrapped up early angel round of funding with another high-profile group, Andreessen Horowitz, FF Angel, 5, Lightspeed Venture Partners, Vast Ventures, and Bitcoin Opportunity Fund, co-founded by Jed McCaleb, a veteran of Mt. Gox Bitcoin Exchange, and Chris Larson, who previously established eLoan. OpenCoin is developing Ripple. So OpenCoin was the brand at this point. Ripple was the crypto that they were going to develop. An open source payments platform being touted as a quick, easy, and low-cost way to exchange currency of any kind anywhere in the world. Ripples are also the name of the digital form of money, XRP, that will be among the currencies tradable on the Ripple platform. Interesting that, this whole thing kind of changed around, and that makes sense. You change around the product concept between the beta phase, alpha phase, and then when you ship it, there's always going to be pivoting that occurs, okay? That's naturally going to happen. Yeah, Lightspeed Ventures, we talked about that. What Andreessen Horowitz supposedly got out of selling Skype to Microsoft was $100 million, which ain't too shabby. I think I just wanted to show you a piece where it just says that the argument for it, Bitcoin is focused more on the currency and less on payment system, says Chris Larson, a co-founder, CEO of OpenCoin. We're trying to offer both. Larson previously founded the online lending and savings platform eLoan and founded OpenCoin with CTO Jed McCaleb, who created once popular file sharing client eDonkey, as well as the biggest Bitcoin exchange, Mt. Gox. That was a fucking disaster. OpenCoin currently has 400 employees. Ripple currently has 300 employees, fun fact, and opening offices all over the place. They have offices in USA, UK, Australia, Singapore, India, Luxembourg, Japan, Dubai, and I believe some new ones. They are working with 164 companies now, corporate clients. Some are direct partners, some aren't. We're going to go through the spreadsheet, the infamous Ripple partnership spreadsheet, in just a couple minutes. But so far, you're starting to piece together the story, right? And I believe this is where I left it, and I'm going to kind of start to graze through some of this now at a little bit faster speed. I hope you don't mind. All right, so now let's talk about the PayPal connections. Peter Thiel, Thiel was co-founder of PayPal. Most people don't know this, but here's the original gangsters of PayPal. Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Steve Chen, Reid Hoffman, and Russell Simmons all worked on PayPal originally. They later sold that to eBay for $1.5 billion. They split that up. Elon Musk went and did, SpaceX, Tesla, but also a lot of that went to YouTube and Yelp and LinkedIn. So that's where a lot of that money went. Jed McCaleb, we already talked about, founder of OpenCoin. He was Mt. Gox, eDonkey. He actually ended up leaving Ripple to start Stellar Lumen. I told you about that. They're sitting at a nice, pretty market cap still. It's a top 10 traded coin, very respectable. Justin Sun actually worked for Ripple on the Ripple project for a brief amount of time. In 2016, he jumped ship to create Tron. Okay, now let's talk about top management and some other third-party relationships. And then we're going to get into the Bilderbergs. We're going to get into the Rothschilds, and I think we'll kind of end it there. We're going to cover directors. We're going to cover top execs, okay? Chris Larson is the executive chairman, one of the co-founders of OpenCoin. He is a member of the FinTech high-level advisory group at IMF and HSBC's technology advisory board, which HSBC is a partner of Ripple. You'll see in the spreadsheet in just a minute. And HSBC was bailed out coincidentally by the Rothschilds, which I'll get into for the Rothschild connection. Here's your 164 partnerships of some sort with Ripple and RippleNet. So we'll go through all these, but HSBC is on this list. HSBC is also a part of the Rothschild conglomerate as well. Well, it's associated with it. HSBC's technology advisory board. Let's see, Susan Athey, hope I'm pronouncing that right, senior economic consultant to Microsoft and is a Ripple board member. She's a pretty key player. She's responsible for the partnership between Ripple and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is huge. This partnership aims at banking the unbanked in the developing countries with nearly 2 billion people. There's ranging stats on this. It's either 2 or 2.5 billion people worldwide who are considered unbanked. Some of them in the Middle East actually don't want centralized banking, believe it or not. Up until the early 2000s, there were 7 countries who hadn't had a centralized bank in them yet. I believe that list is now just 3. Interesting coincidence, those are often on that list. Those were countries that were all at war or are currently at war, the ones that are still on the list. Next, Gene Sperling, chief economic advisory to Hillary Clinton during her 2016 presidential campaign and served as National Economic Council Director and National Economic Advisor under Presidents Clinton and Obama. Interesting enough, there's a lot of ties to the 2016 Hillary Clinton presidential campaign and the Rothschilds as well. They donated. You can actually go and find her registry. I'm going to talk about it, but I'm not going to pull it up. You can find everybody who donated to her presidential campaign, and a lot of different Rothschild assets all contributed the same $2.7 million. You can go look that up. They were a heavy contributor to Hillary Clinton. We had Bill Clinton, who spoke at Swell Conference in 2018. So there's a lot of interesting correlations here. David Schwartz, he's lead developer. 1988 proposed patent, gets it in 1991. He's got an interesting past too. He used to be on Ripple's board before he gave it to Ken Kurson. He's worked for CNN and NSA on multiple occasions. Let's talk about Ripple and the Bilderberg Group. So the whole point, if you didn't know, of the Bilderberg Group, it's for really influential individuals. It's like a mastermind, but it doesn't sound so cool and like marketing-ish. It sounds more, I guess it's been spun and most people think of it as like this this bad thing. Just like the G meetings, the G series meetings, G20, G8. Those are also looked at and referenced in a more negative tone. Senior officials, executives, decision makers from all the top companies in the world go to the Bilderberg groups, okay? And you can see the guest list and agendas. I don't think you can see that recently, but you could from, I believe, 2010 through 2015. Susan Athey joined Ripple shortly after attending the Bilderberg group in 2013. Anna Boyton was invited to the 2015 meeting on the account and representing Banco Santander's chairman. 4 months later, that bank invested into Ripple. So obviously she got to talk to Susan. Peter Thiel is one of the early Ripple investors, part of PayPal. You remember him. He's often at Bilderberg Group meetings as well. Bill Clinton, he's a member of the group, and he's constantly going. He was the keynote for the 2018 Swell Conference. I believe they paid him $500,000 to do that as well, which is crazy to me. But that's what he gets for his keynote speeches still to this very day. Oddly, though, I wouldn't really want to be that associated with Bill or Hillary with a lot of the negative press that they're constantly getting. Ben Bernanke, you know him, the former Federal Reserve Chairman. He regularly goes to the Bilderberg meetings as well. And he was the keynote speaker at Swell 2017. Okay, so interesting, right? Starting to get really interesting. Now let's dive a little deeper here because things can get really fun. Okay, this list that you see on your screen of 164 businesses, a lot of these have ties to the Rothschilds. Now, how? How do they have ties? Well, some of it might just be that they're invested in some sort of way. Okay, the Edmund de Rothschild Group invests in many different things, and they mostly invest in bonds. Okay, so let me just get this document ready, and I'm going to show it to you. It's a little tricky to find, but here's what we got. So you could actually go through this list and find relationships between a lot of these. So between this bank and the Rothschilds, which I think it's pretty hard not to get a relationship between the two. Okay, so here is the annual report and audited financial statements as of March 31st, 2018. Well, the next one is going to drop next month, March 31st, 2019. The financial year runs from March to March. So you can just go to this document, okay, 558 pages. If you ever wanted to get into the mind of one of the most successful banks, one of the most successful funds, one of the most successful families on this fucking planet, you could just read their financial reports. We could go through this and we could search for relationships between PNC or main investors into PNC, main shareholders into PNC, and then their relationship, third party, to Rothschild. So BlackRock was a big investor. I believe PNC was a big investor into BlackRock. And then when BlackRock did its IPO, then it kind of flip-flopped. And I believe BlackRock is now a big investor into PNC. But PNC is like a bank in America that not a lot of people know of because it's mostly in the South. Florida, it was huge in. So all we got to do is come up to the top and we can search some of these. I've cherry-picked and I've searched out some of these already, some of the more juicy ones that I wanted to share with you. And one of them is SBI. And the reason why I wanted to search SBI is they've got SBI holdings in several different locations. This one's in Japan, and they are an official partner. That's what this check mark means. But SBI is closely related, involved with the Rothschilds as well. And interesting enough, you can see Ripple's XRP mentioned here. Optimism surrounding cryptocurrency. SBI owns a 8.7% stake in Ripple's XRP. So it's like some of this stuff is like done through third parties. And you wonder how much collusion is there really, for lack of better words, but how much like joint conversation is really occurring between all these big dogs. You have to kind of wonder that. So just because there is connections, that does not really mean anything outside of that Rothschild fund is invested into SBI. And SBI is invested into Ripple. It's brought up quite a bit. Japanese financial services company SBI Holdings, in which August 2017 launched a new dual tranche, 40 billion, 3 to 5 year CBs to refinance an existing CB fund buyback for new investment opportunities. You can go through this and actually look at the performance breakdown and some of the deeper complexities and financial speak to what's going on here. But SBI is a big player. And the reason why I brought up SBI is because they're a big dog and they just happened to be barking up a tree recently, a couple days ago. XRP, not Bitcoin, is the top cryptocurrency in the market, says SBI Holdings CEO. This is obvious, and the article even talks about that, is that they are vested into XRP, which at last estimations and what you just saw in the document is 8.7%, okay, as we just saw. Okay, so I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name, but the CEO of SBI Holdings is basically getting more vocal about XRP, not Bitcoin, which I don't even know why this is an argument. One focuses more on being a currency, and the other one is focusing more on being a way to transact really quickly. I think Bitcoin should really stick to its store of value argument, and that's where maximalists should really be spending their time, because it makes more sense to send large amounts of money in Bitcoin and to actually hold larger amounts in terms of dollar value in Bitcoin. I just don't see it ever becoming a transacting coin for the everyday guy to go buy coffee with, okay? Ripple is way more suited for that. And I know people won't like that I admit that, but that's exactly what it is. Okay, because the fundamental value of Bitcoin is zero, it falls by 80% from the peak let's be honest, the S&P 500 has had a really shitty November and December, and this is not, I don't like when people frame this up like, oh my gosh, volatility is so bad, and it's only crypto that has such extreme volatility, because actually we saw the S&P 500 wobble and private meetings held and things happen in the background so that they could inject more cash into the market to fix the S&P 500 so it didn't completely collapse in December. That was actually all done on Christmas. You can look that up. On Christmas, they were making emergency efforts to fix the S&P 500. So when people try and use that as an argument against especially Bitcoin, I don't like it. And I also don't like that the store value is zero. I don't think that's it, because it costs money to mine it. Okay, so the cost is somewhere in the 3,000s, just like there's a cost to mine gold. Okay, so I like the argument, digital gold. I think that does suit Bitcoin really, really well. But anyways, he's talking trash. Now, if we just zoom out for a second and look at the macro, you saw my last video where I talk about the IMF and make a strong argument for the fact that they are trying to roll out a digital currency, a global digital currency. Now you start to see that all these big dogs, all these banks, like every bank, is heavily involved with Ripple. It starts to make it really easy to see that that's maybe where they want to go with this thing. Okay, so SBI, he comes out, talks bad, but let's see what else we got in this. Let's just scroll through this. Western Union, they are in fact an official partner. We got Rack Bank, I've never heard of them. UAE, that's why I've never been there. ANZ, Westpac, those are big banks in Australia. Westpac is an official partner. ANZ is not. Who else do we got? We got Scotia, they're a big player in Canada. Bank of England, big. Star Bank, never heard of that. That's Japan, okay. Aeon, that's Japan, I think, as well, right? Yeah, they're not a partner. You're seeing the common theme here is that it's banks, it's remittances companies, it's financial groups. 7 Bank, I actually believe that that's for all the 7-Elevens in Japan. They actually have their own bank, but it says that their parent company is SBI Holdings. And just so you know why I said SBI was such a big player, look at this. Parent company of all these banks is what? SBI Holdings. Look at this. Look at this. Just look at this column, parent company, SBI Holdings. What is that, 20, 30 companies, SBI Holdings? That's why. So SBI is a huge player in this whole game, and they're getting more vocal, coincidentally, as the IMF is talking digital currency. I think it's going to happen really quickly. I think it's going to happen this year. So another interesting little piece here, HSBC, they're always playing with HSBC 17, here we go. There's actual holdings breakdowns of what they're holding in HSBC, or is this where they've got their bonds held? So they're using HSBC to hold their assets, which makes total sense. They've also helped HSBC. Back in 2015, HSBC hires Rothschild to lead private bank overhaul, complete overhaul. So they've reached out to them. HSBC has had some rough times here. 2015 was a bad year for them. They also recently got hit again. But most major banks has been hit recently. And all these links I will give you underneath the video. But now I want to do one last little correlation here, because we could go really quite deep. There's Mitsubishi ties to the Rothschilds. There's Western Union ties. You saw the SBI ties, MoneyGram, like every single player on here, directly or through third party, has a tie to the Rothschilds, because they're in everything. Okay, that's the fact. They're in everything, so it'd be hard not to. All right, so now let's talk about CME. The famous CME that offers crypto futures is an investor in Ripple, and Miguel Viez is part of top management in Ripple, and he's a executive, I believe, for CME, or was. Leo Melamend, CME Group's chairman. Remember, he once said, we'll tame Bitcoin. That's an interesting statement, and they're positioned in Ripple. Another investor in Ripple is Digital Currency Group, which is dcg.co, if you want to check them out. The group has stake in Coinbase and a lot of other services. On the Coinbase front, Ripple has a partnership with Via Americas. Let me grab that one. Open that up for you. Okay, so you can see that here. We were very pleased with our pilot results. It's clear that XRapid can lower liquidity costs while increasing payment speed and transparency in a way that facilitates rigorous compliance controls. We believe that digital assets like XRP will play a key role in the future of cross-border payments, helping to safely address some of the structural inefficiencies of legacy settlement infrastructure as their adoption grows. We look forward to exploring next steps with Ripple. That was Paul Dyer, the co-founder and CEO of Via Americas. I believe that's correct. But anyways, Paul Dyer is a board chairman of the Money Services Business Association, MSBA. The MSBA works directly with the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. This is interesting around the whole conversation of, is XRP a security? And so far it's no, but there is a couple pending lawsuits, and I believe that at some point it will come out, yes, XRP is cleared or not cleared. There's going to be a ruling on it. When that happens, I believe that is when Ripple will be listed on Coinbase personally. And I believe that with these different ties, the lobbying can occur, persuasion can occur, and that the XRP is going to be ruled not a security. That's my personal opinion. And then it will get listed onto Coinbase just like that. Because of this sort of drama around it currently, that's why they haven't. And further proof of that is Ripple, they work with a group of companies, have formed the Securing America's Internet of Value Coalition. That's an interesting one. This organization employed services of Clean Johnson Group, a bipartisan lobbying firm, to raise issues with SEC and other government agencies involved in the regulation of cryptocurrencies. So they're tightly working with the SEC. I just don't see how the SEC would then turn on them and rule them as a security. I think that they will deem them not a security, okay? And we already talked about some of the other ones, Santander, MoneyGram, SBI, right? There you have it. I think overall, it's a huge player. Ripple is an absolute huge player. And I want to end on this piece that just came out the other day. You know, JPM coin, which is JP Morgan, is their digital coin. I wouldn't call it a cryptocurrency. That'd be a slap in the face to cryptos. But this is a piece talking about the swirling conversation around this whole launch. Does it affect Ripple? Okay, let's talk about Umar Farrak's comment. When one client sends money to another over the blockchain, JPM coins are transferred and instantaneously redeemed for the equivalent amount of US dollars, reducing the typical settlement time. This sounds much like Ripple's XRapid, which uses the cryptocurrency XRP as the bridging currency. To send money using XRapid, a customer exchanges fiat currency for XRP. The XRP is transferred. Then the recipient redeems the XRP for fiat currency. The difference is, of course, that XRP is not a stablecoin and that it is the price fluctuates, okay? It's not immediately apparent that this is the goal. Firstly, JPM coin will at very least start with only be used for payments entirely in the US dollars, unlike XRapid, which can handle multiple currencies and cross-currency payments. Secondly, JPM coin is again to start with only available to JP Morgan's institutional clients. A lot of people tend to think it's marketing hype. It's just JP Morgan trying to get in front of this. But JP Morgan has actively been developing blockchain stuff for years now, despite Jamie Dimon's comments, which I cover that in the JPM coin video. You can check that out if you want to on the channel, my friends. Okay, so now let's talk about my opinion. I believe that in Q2 of 2019, they will, I don't know how they're going to do it, but it's going to be a bail-in. This is what this is called. Cyprus did this in 2012. They'll shut the lights off, close the doors for a couple days, a couple hours, a couple weeks, come back and say, hey, here's how we're going to do things. And it's all going to be spun in and positioned for the greater good, for the interest of the people. And that is when they're going to roll out this dual currency system, which will be fiat, because they can't phase out cash. There's too much of a strong argument against doing that. And they will do a digital currency. And I think that digital currency has a high likelihood of being Ripple. Now, let's talk price predictions and some of the insanity that I see around that. Some of the stuff in the Ripple community, I just flat out don't understand. And it's very weird to me because that's the only community that really behaves the way that I see them behaving. They'll either love you or completely dox you and destroy your whole life. And I don't understand why. It's just a cryptocurrency, guys. Calm down. And I know that people are bagged up in it. I know that people have strong viewpoints on it. They think that they're going to get rich off of it. I don't understand how that would get them to behave that way, but that's beyond me. Price prediction. I don't think it's going to go crazy, guys. And I know I'm not going to make friends over making a statement like that. But if this is a instantaneous, fast transacting coin, why would they allow it to go to a high denomination? Remember, this was pre-mined. Remember, there's a lot of mystery wallets still floating around. Why would they let this go up to $50 or $100? They actually need it to stay low, not stablecoin low, not 1-to-1 ratio. I don't see it being that. It could actually be less than $1, but it's got to be in a denomination that, for the most part, stays pretty stable and is easy for people to do the math on. Because I remember when I first got into cryptocurrency, like this whole Satoshi thing, I was like, what? Decimal points? Like I sucked at decimal points in math. So I hated that. It took me months to figure out how the fuck to actually do this stuff. They need a denomination in a global currency. Again, if this happens, I could be wrong on this whole front, but if they're going to use it as a global currency, why would they let it go to $50, $100, $1,000? They won't. So I know that sucks for some people to hear, maybe because they think that it's going to go really high or that it would quote unquote be, they would let that happen. I don't think that would. I don't think that would. Worst case scenario, if it was rolled out as a global currency and they tried to kind of lock it into some certain price, is you would just have a bunch of the currency that's now accepted everywhere, but you wouldn't get rich off it, and you wouldn't get your Lambo, and you wouldn't go to the moon. Again, that's my opinions. You might disagree with it. That's the beauty of this world. We all think differently, my friends, but hopefully you enjoyed this video. You enjoyed the sheer amount of work and effort that went into putting all these links and this whole storyline together. Please give this video just a thumbs up, guys. That's it. Just take a second, thumbs up this bad boy. If you like what we're doing on the channel, subscribe, hit the bell notification. We got juicy videos coming out all the time. You can go back, check out some of our older playlists. We focus mostly on macro economy, touch heavy into cryptocurrencies as well, and that's kind of our thing, is the financial space. That's what we're getting into more and more. Support us that way if you want to. Give us some money. $1 goes a long way. We got a Patreon set up underneath the video as well. Again, $1 from a lot of people goes a long way to help us continue to make great content like this on the channel. And that is it, my friends. Share this around, spread it with your friends. Pro Ripple, anti-Ripple, doesn't really matter. We're all in this together, and we'll see you very soon in another video. Bye.